Yes, definitely, Leanne, and I think these are lessons that will be carried throughout these generations and these younger children that Reckitt South Africa is aiming to spread their awareness to ahead of the Global Hand Washing Day, which is observed on the 15th of October. But I'm joined now by Ionnis Dostas, who is the Regional Director at Reckitt SA, to speak more about the campaign. I spoke earlier on to the Head of Corporate Communications. But Ionnis, we were speaking just off air now about the issue around hand washing and whether the numbers that you have identified, that 42%, you've been able to identify where these areas are, and if this links in any way to the issue around diarrhea with young children. And you said yes and no. Can you elaborate on that with what you have been able to identify as Reckitt South Africa?
Yes, thank you. So the issue of people not washing their hands is an issue that is across the country in South Africa. What we have identified, though, is the areas where diarrhea is a big issue in South Africa. And we have worked with the Department of Health, who is very closely following up with statistics on that topic, and identified what we call hotspots area, where targeted work is needed in order to really fight the burden of diarrhea.
And so, how concerning is this issue, especially in rural areas? If you've been able to deploy people on the ground, what are some of the challenges that they're facing? I know Masibonge was speaking to some issues of access, but what are some of those issues that you have been able to see on the ground?
The issues are that in most of the areas you have a lack of infrastructure in combination with a lack of education. Okay? And therefore Reckitt South Africa is trying, together with its partners, to really go into these areas and provide first education around the topic, targeted at new moms, but also targeted at learners, and second, also provide infrastructure in the areas where it's needed, so that the people can really drive hand washing with the right infrastructure in place.
And until then, Ionnis, what are people to do? Because we're also seeing a shortage of water currently around the country, but there are areas where people, for instance, in Stats SA 2019 figures, 3.1% of people still making use of rivers, for example, to access their waters. What are people to do in the absence of being able to have their resources to wash their hands?
The issue of water is becoming a big problem, obviously, in South Africa. So Reckitt is working on two pillars to provide access to water. We have a big partnership in South Africa with WWF, where we're working on South Africa's strategic water sources in the Drakensberg, and how can we there conserve water and put it back into the systems. But we've also just launched a program which is called Fight for Access Accelerator, where we are funding, or we're helping small businesses with funds, with expertise, and with coaching from our managers in order to really accelerate their ideas on water conservation and make their impact much bigger in the country.
And the New Moms project, I understand, is currently being launched in Gauteng and Mpumalanga. So will you be able to tell us then how you plan to expand this project around the country?
Yes, so the New Moms project, we have it for a couple of years now, and we are doing a lot of work in Gauteng and in Mpumalanga. However, as I was mentioning before, we've identified now that the hotspot areas are not only in Gauteng and Mpumalanga, but also in Limpopo and in Northwest, for example. Therefore, in 2023, we are going to expand the New Moms program together with our partners into these two provinces as well, in order to really increase our impact with this program.
And with, lastly, this project, the Mzansi project, where you're aiming to raise awareness amongst young children. How many children are you hoping to reach? When will this project be kicking off? Have you identified the schools, for example, that you'll be visiting? Just how many children, perhaps in the next year, that you're hoping to raise awareness to?
So Mzansi Protect is a project that we are kicking off today, officially, and we are driving this together with our partners, and specifically for the learners. Nelson Mandela Foundation, who is one of our partners, will provide us access to over 2,000 early childhood development centers, where we will educate more than 1 million learners in 2023, but we will also provide the infrastructure for hand washing in those schools. This will be done in parallel with 500,000 moms, educating 500,000 new moms on the topic of hand washing with soap.
And these moms, you're finding them in hospitals. How do you go about educating or reaching these new moms?
Yes, we have a partnership in place with the Department of Health, where we are going into public clinics and educating the new moms there.
How did that project come about? What is it that you identified that prompted you to start such a project? Because is there a lack of education with regards to new moms and how it is they go about with the hygiene of children? What is it? What research have you been able to do that helped you prompted you to start such a project?
The mom is the guardian of every household, and therefore the mom, with her know-how and with her habits, educates her children as well. So that's how this project started, that if we really want to have an impact and drive hand-washing habits starting from small children, the first person to educate is the mom, and therefore she will transfer those habits to her children. That's how this project started 5 years ago, actually.
And I understand that Reckitt has a number of other initiatives linked to issue of hand washing or hygiene. Can you speak to us about a few of those other projects that we can see around the country?
Yes, in Reckitt we believe actually that our brands have a role to play in a positive societal impact, and therefore we are trying to put programs into place that can have a positive impact into our communities or society in general. So I mentioned already the partnership we have with WWF, where we are driving water conservation in Drakensberg. We have partnerships with Department of Health, for example, with our brand JIC, where we educated during the pandemic patients and staff of more than 400 clinics on the importance of surface disinfection. And we've also just started a project where we are funding small businesses to really drive water, sanitation and hygiene initiatives that can be affordable for most of our people.